They say a man can watch fire for hours, but Elijah Boone, he watched innocents being burned alive. And that day, he decided to become fire himself. It was the kind of morning that bled silence. Dry winds scraped over the cracked earth of Ash Hollow, a town so godless even the crows circled twice before landing. Elijah rode slow, his boots dusty, hat low, the weight of an old war still clinging to his shoulders like smoke. He wasn't a hero, not anymore. Just a rancher. Just a man buying salt, nails, and whiskey. He hadn't planned to walk into hell with his boots on, but fate has a way of dressing up in rags and screaming from the center of town. The first thing he heard was the shouting. The second was the silence. That followed it, the kind that chokes a man before he even draws breath. He turned a corner and froze. There was a makeshift platform, and on it, 3 girls, young, dirty, terrified, one barely a teenager, one maybe 12, the last no older than 6, tied at the wrists, paraded like cattle, their dresses torn, faces streaked with dust and dried tears. Standing behind them, a man with a gut like rot and a voice dipped in whiskey. "Them's good girls," he bellowed, raising a hand-rolled cigarette high. "Quiet, clean, and bred, by me. Take one, take all. Who'll start the bidding?" The crowd didn't gasp. They chuckled. Elijah didn't blink. He just listened as the man went on, bragging how he raised 'em right and fed 'em well, how they were less mouths to feed if they went today. Elijah felt his hands ball into fists. He thought of his late wife, God rest her, who died birthing the son he raised alone. He thought of his own father, mean as a hornet, but even he would have strung this man up for sport. The oldest girl, the one with tangled brown hair, locked eyes with Elijah, and something cracked inside him. Not pity, not rage. Resolve. He stepped forward. "How much for all 3? Elijah's voice cut like a blade in church. The father grinned, his teeth blackened. "Well now, that depends. You buyin' for work, or you say one more word and you'll be selling your teeth next?" The crowd laughed, but uneasy now. Elijah tossed a small leather pouch near the man's feet. "Gold eagles, enough to forget you ever had daughters." "Take it, and leave." The man bent down, fingered the pouch. "You serious?" Elijah said nothing, just stepped up, untied the ropes with shaking hands. He lifted the youngest in his arms. She smelled of smoke and bruised flowers. The other 2 followed, clutching one another like ghosts afraid to vanish. As he turned to leave, someone in the crowd muttered, "You just bought trouble, Boone." He didn't look back. "Maybe. But I've lived long enough to know. Some trouble is worth bleeding for." And just like that, the man who wanted salt and nails walked out of town with 3 daughters he didn't know he needed, and a future even he couldn't have seen coming. But what Elijah didn't realize was that his 3 sons were about to meet the women who would either save them or tear them apart. Hit that subscribe button. Love begins, secrets unravel, and one sister disappears. The ride back to the Boone Ranch was long and quiet. Elijah didn't speak, neither did the girls. The oldest, Claire, held her chin high, but her knuckles were white from holding Ruthie's hand too tight. The youngest, Lily, had her arms wrapped around Elijah's neck, face buried against his coat, as if trying to disappear into the safety of him. They passed the cottonwoods, lining the riverbank where Elijah once taught his boys how to fish. Past the cemetery where his wife rested, beneath a crooked wooden cross. And finally, they reached the ridge where the Boone Ranch came into view, a wide 2-story home of hand-hewn pine and sweat, barns to the left, corrals to the right, and 3 grown sons waiting on the porch, rifles in hand. The moment the wagon creaked to a stop, Jesse Boone stepped forward, squinting against the low sun. He wasn't smiling. "Pa," he muttered, eyeing the 3 girls. "What in God's name have you brought home?" Harlan, the eldest, leaned against the railing. His face was unreadable. The scar running down his left cheek twitched slightly. Caleb, the youngest, stepped forward first. He didn't speak, just reached out and gently helped Ruthie down from the wagon. She flinched. "Easy," Caleb said softly. "Ain't nobody gonna hurt you here." She didn't reply, but she didn't pull away either. Elijah finally broke the silence. "I found 'em being sold off like pigs in Ash Hollow. Bought 'em. Couldn't leave 'em there." Jesse scoffed. "We ain't running a church, Pa." "You think this is charity?" Elijah snapped. "They're not guests. They're family. Now." "Family?" Harlan asked, his voice deep, steady. "You mean to marry them?" Elijah nodded. "That's exactly what I mean." Claire's head snapped toward him, eyes wide. "We didn't agree to that." "You didn't have to," Elijah said gently. "But you will have a choice, not like the one your father gave you." He turned to his sons. "You boys are men now. This ranch needs roots again. Blood. Love. These girls need safety. You need something to live for." Jesse shook his head, already walking away. "This place don't need brides, Pa. It needs repairs." Claire stepped down from the wagon slowly, her boots hitting the dirt with defiance. "You bought us, but we're not things to be handed off." "You're right," Elijah said, tipping his hat. "But I ain't your enemy. You want to leave? You'll be free to. But if you stay, you'll be protected, fed, given dignity." Harlan stepped off the porch and looked Claire in the eye. "Do you ride?" She blinked, caught off guard. "What? You ride? Shoot? No cattle from corn?" Claire tilted her chin up. "I can break a wild pony, skin a rabbit, and knock down a tin can at 30 yards. He gave a slight nod. "Then you'll fit right in." And just like that, the war began. Not of fists, but of glances, silences, and wounds no one could see. That night, as the ranch lit up under kerosene lamps, the Boone household had its first supper in months with more than 5 chairs. Filled. Lily clutched her spoon like it might vanish. Ruthie barely touched her stew. Claire sat tall and silent, watching every move. Across the table, Jesse drank slow from his flask. "You'll all regret this," he muttered, and no one knew exactly who he meant. Not yet. The next morning came heavy with frost. A gray mist rolled across the fields like ghosts too tired to haunt. Claire stepped out onto the porch wrapped in Elijah's late wife's shawl. It still smelled faintly of lavender and wood smoke. She hated how safe it felt. Harlan was already by the corral, feeding the horses. He didn't look up when she approached. "Didn't need to." "I didn't thank you," Claire said, crossing her arms, "for saying what you did yesterday." "You didn't have to," he replied, tossing hay. "Didn't do it for you." She squinted. "Then why'd you do it?" Harlan finally turned to face her. "Because I don't like bullies, and I sure as hell don't like men who sell their children like cattle." Claire blinked. His voice didn't hold pity, just steel. "Do you want me here?" she asked, quieter now. "I don't want anything," Harlan said. "But I reckon this ranch could use someone who doesn't flinch from broken fences or hard truth." She paused. "You ever been married?" "No," he answered. "You ever been in love?" Harlan looked out toward the hills. "Once. She died." Claire said nothing more. She just stood beside him in silence, hands tucked tight into the shawl, the cold forgotten for a moment. Inside the house, Caleb was showing Ruthie how to mend one of his shirts by the fire. "You're real good with a needle," he said, watching her small hands move with calm precision. Ruthie didn't answer. "You talk much?" he asked. She shrugged. Lily was curled in a rocking chair nearby, humming a lullaby she must have heard long ago. Caleb offered Ruthie a small smile. "You know, I used to be the quiet one too. Still am, when my brothers aren't yelling." Ruthie glanced up, her eyes darker than her age allowed. "Why do you smile so much?" Caleb blinked. "'Cause someone around here has to." Then suddenly she said something that sent chills down his spine. "Our real papa didn't want to sell us." Caleb leaned in. "Then who? Before He could finish. She clammed up. Her needle jabbed too hard, pricked her thumb. She gasped. Blood pooled in a bead. He reached for her hand gently. "It's okay. It's okay," she whispered. "Don't tell Claire." He nodded, though he didn't understand why. Not yet. Out in the barn, Jesse was drinking before noon again. He kicked a bucket across the floor and muttered curses under his breath. He hated the silence this house had adopted since the girls arrived. He hated the way his father had made decisions without him. Again. But most of all, he hated the way Claire had looked at Harlan this morning, like he was some kind of hero. Jesse had fought too. Lost men beside him, buried friends. Why did no one look at him like that? The barn door creaked. Claire stepped in, chin high. "You hiding?" "I work alone," Jesse snapped. She walked over and picked up the same bucket he kicked. "So do I." He looked at her, hard. "You think you're better than us?" "No," she said calmly. "But I sure as hell know I'm not less." Their eyes locked. There was fire in both. Only difference. Claire knew how to control hers. "Won't be handed off like bread at supper," she said. "Then don't be," Jesse said, stepping closer. "But don't act like you're not already taking root here. I see how you look at Harlan." Claire didn't flinch. "I look at all of you the same, like I don't trust you." And then she left, leaving behind the scent of wood smoke and something Jesse hadn't felt in years. Doubt, that evening, as dinner settled in their stomachs and silence lingered between candlelight, a distant neigh broke through the stillness. Elijah stood first. "That wasn't one of ours." They rushed out into the night, guns in hand. At the edge of the property, a lone horse stood riderless, saddle torn, blood on the flank. No sign of who it belonged to. But there, tied to the saddle horn, was a strip of leather. Burned into it was a symbol Elijah hadn't seen in nearly 2 decades. A black snake coiled around a cross. His jaw clenched. Harlan muttered, "Graves." Elijah turned to his sons. "Get ready. Trouble just found us." The fire in the hearth crackled louder than usual that night. Nobody said much at supper. Even Jesse hadn't poured a drink. That lone horse, the blood, the mark of the snake on that leather. It had changed the air in the house. Claire noticed it first. Elijah kept checking the windows, his fork untouched. Harlan had his rifle leaning against his chair. Caleb whistled less, and Ruthie kept glancing at the back door. Finally, Claire spoke. "Whose graves?" Elijah looked up slowly. His eyes were darker than they had ever been. "Silas Graves," he muttered. "Man so cruel, even the war spat him out," Jesse snorted bitterly. "He used to ride with Pa, back before he grew a conscience." "I was young and stupid," Elijah admitted. "Graves taught me how to shoot, how to track, how to bury bodies where no one would find them. I rode with his gang for 6 years. Claire leaned forward. "And then?" "I left. Told him I was done. Built this ranch with blood money, yes. But I wanted out." Harlan interrupted, voice low. "Graves don't let people leave." "No," Elijah agreed. "But I had leverage, and I used it." "What kind of leverage?" Claire asked. Elijah stood up and walked over to the mantel. He pulled down a rusted tin box. From it, he removed a folded paper, a map. He spread it open, on the table. "This," he said, tapping it. "This is where Graves buried something he never wanted found. Something that would ruin men in high places." "What is it?" Jesse asked, leaning in. "Proof, names, ledgers, blackmail, men in politics, railroads, land offices. They all paid him once. If this got out, they'd bury you next," Harlan finished. Elijah nodded. "That's why he's coming. Not for me. For this." Claire crossed her arms. "Then why keep it?" "Because sometimes," Elijah said, "the devil deserves to be dragged into the light." Later that night, The wind howled louder than usual. Upstairs, Ruthie couldn't sleep, not because of fear, but because of the voice. A whisper. It came from the hallway, then the stairs, then the back porch. She climbed out of bed in her nightgown, barefoot on cold wood. The voice whispered again, soft, almost like a song. The cross is broken. The snake still lives. She followed it, down the stairs, to the back door. It creaked, open. A shadow stood there, tall, still, wearing a wide-brimmed hat that hid its face. Ruthie gasped, but it didn't move. Then lightning struck, just once. In the flash, the shadow disappeared. The door slammed shut, and when she turned around, Jesse was standing behind her, shotgun in hand. "You shouldn't be out of bed," he said quietly. "Not tonight." Meanwhile, Caleb tossed and turned in his room. He dreamed of fire, screams, a field of crosses, and Claire, tied to one of them. He woke up gasping, sweat on his brow. Across the hall he heard movement. Soft feet. Whispers. Something was already inside the house. He grabbed his knife and moved silently. But when he stepped into the hallway, he saw nothing but the curtain by the window, swaying, like someone had just been standing behind it. Downstairs, Elijah sat in his armchair, rifle across his lap. Harlan paced near the fire. "She asked me today if I ever loved someone," Harlan muttered. Elijah raised an eyebrow. "Claire?" "Mm-hmm." "And you said?" Harlan looked at the flames. "That she died." "Lie?" "No." Elijah nodded, slowly. "She's strong." "She's dangerous," Harlan corrected. "She'll make whichever brother marries her into something better, or break them trying." "You sound scared," Elijah said, grinning faintly. "I'm not scared," Harlan whispered. "I'm wide awake." Suddenly, a crash from the barn. All three men stood at once, guns drawn. They stepped outside. The barn doors had been torn, open. Hay scattered. One of the horses gone, and on the ground, nailed into the floor with a dagger, was a note. "You stole what was mine. Now I'll take what's yours. SG." Elijah's hands trembled for the first time in years. He looked up at the moon and said just one word: "War's back." Elijah didn't sleep that night. Nobody did. The note in the barn had shaken the walls of the house more than the wind ever could. "You stole what was mine. Now I'll take what's yours." Signed, SG Silas Graves was real, alive, and he had started the hunt. By morning, the ranch was in motion. Elijah posted Jesse on the eastern ridge with a scope. Caleb stayed near the livestock with Ruthie, armed and quiet. Harlan rode into town, not to call the sheriff, but to send word to an old contact, one who owed him blood. Inside the house, Claire swept the floors, watching every shadow stretch, too long in the morning sun. Something was off. Even the birds weren't singing. That's when Ruthie came inside, pale and silent, holding a piece of paper. Claire took it, unfolding slowly. It was a drawing, hand-sketched, rough but unmistakable. It showed a woman in a red dress standing at the gallows, with the same ranch house burning behind her. "Ruthie," Claire asked, voice shaking, "who showed you this?" "No one," the little girl said softly. "It came in my dream. Again." Claire knelt down. "Again? You've seen it before?" Ruthie nodded. "Every time the wind howls." Meanwhile, in town, Harlan tied his horse and stepped into the back of Murphy's gun shop. He didn't browse. Just walked straight to the door marked private. A man with silver hair and one eye looked up from the table inside. "I figured you'd come," he said. "You still owe me," Harlan replied. "That I do." "Graves is alive." The one-eyed man stood slowly, reached under the desk, and pulled out a case. When he opened it, there were two things inside: A sawed-off shotgun wrapped in wolfskin, and a photograph. Old, faded. It showed 6 men, arms around each other, all grinning like. Evils in the center stood a younger Elijah, and beside him, a man with a silver tooth and snake tattoo across his neck. Silas Graves, the one-eyed man whispered. I buried him once. Well, Harlan said grimly, he must have clawed his way out. Back at the ranch, Jesse spotted a figure in the distance, not riding, not walking, just standing, on the hill, watching. He raised his scope, but the moment the glass hit the man's outline, his image rippled like smoke and vanished. Jesse blinked. What the hell? He ran back to the house, but just before reaching the porch, his foot caught on something buried under the dirt. He knelt and pulled. A small cross, burned black, with Ruthie's name carved into it. His hand trembled as he yanked it free. Inside the wood was a snake's fang. That evening, Elijah gathered them all in the dining room. The fire blazed. He stood holding the old map again. There's something I need to tell you, he said. Something none of you know. Claire folded her arms. Then say it. We deserve truth now. Elijah looked at the girls, then his sons, then the window. I didn't just leave Graves, he said slowly. I betrayed him. Jesse tensed. How? I fell in love with the one thing he considered his, a woman named Maria, a healer, Mexican by blood. She saved me when I was gut shot after a raid. He continued. I stayed with her, loved her. Graves found out. What happened to her? Ruthie whispered. Elijah looked down. I tried to run with her, but they caught her first. Silence. Caleb's knuckles were white on the table's edge. Jesse clenched his jaw. Claire looked like she couldn't breathe. He carved a snake into her skin, Elijah said hoarsely, said I'd feel it for the rest of my life. And I have. He unbuttoned his shirt, just enough to show an old brand on his chest, a serpent eating its tail. I didn't just run from Graves, he said. I stole his fire. Outside, the wind began to howl. Inside the barn, the horses bucked and neighed wildly. Claire rushed to the window. Something's out there. Elijah and the boys grabbed rifles. When they stepped outside, there was no one. But a fresh symbol carved into the wooden post near the gate. A snake, coiled around. A rose, and beneath it, the words, Bring her to the well, or they all burn. The wind died at once, like it had finished whispering its threat, and was waiting for a response. Claire stared at the carved snake symbol near the gate, its curves almost alive in the flickering lantern light. The rose beneath it was bleeding, red, but it wasn't paint. It was blood. Elijah touched it with his finger. Still warm. We don't have time, he said. He's too close. Who is she? Jesse asked. Bring who to the well? Elijah looked toward the dark hills behind the barn, toward a path overgrown with thorns and memory. The well, he whispered. It's where I left her. Inside the house, Ruthie was sitting alone on the floor, humming. The tune was low, foreign, like something sung over graves. Claire knelt beside her. Ruthie, sweetheart, are you okay? Ruthie slowly turned her head. Her eyes were her own. But something else was behind them. Something older. Something watching from beneath the water. I remember now, Ruthie said. Remember what, baby? The way she screamed. Claire's breath caught. She had flowers in her hair, but they fell off when the fire touched her dress. What fire? Claire asked, gripping her daughter's shoulders, but Ruthie's lips just trembled. She said he'd come for us, and he has. That night, Elijah gathered his sons and Claire. In the attic, he opened a chest no one had touched in 20 years. Inside was a hand-drawn map, a blood-stained ribbon, and a revolver made of silver and bone. He pointed to a spot on the map. Deep in the hills. This is the well. I covered it myself. It was where we used to meet. Me and Maria. She'd light a candle every night. Said the well was sacred to her people. Said it heard things. What happened there? Caleb asked. Elijah's face hardened. She was taken there by graves, and when I found her, she was already gone. Her body was gone too. All that remained was the candle, still lit. But the flame was black. Jesse stepped back. And you buried it? Elijah nodded. With stone, with salt, and with a prayer from a dying priest. Suddenly, dogs started barking wildly. Claire ran to the porch. A figure was limping toward the house, wrapped in rags, leaning on a cane. When she came into the lantern's glow, Claire gasped. The woman had one eye. The other was milky white. Blind. She spoke in a voice like dead leaves. Is he still here? Elijah stepped forward. Who are you? I'm the one who raised him. Elijah, she hissed. You dug up what should have stayed buried. The old woman's name was Luna Santiago, a midwife, a witch, some said. She had nursed Silas Graves back from a snake bite as a boy, and claimed to have kept part of his soul in her keeping. You killed the man, she said, but not what he became. Claire narrowed her eyes. Then what is he now? Luna stared at Ruthie through the window, her one good eye filling with tears. He's in the wind, in the ground. And now, he wants a vessel. Elijah's face drained of color. Ruthie. That night, as the family debated what to do, Ruthie disappeared. The front door was wide open. On the steps, drawn in ash, was the same snake symbol. But this time it moved when the wind touched it. They rode out in silence. 3 brothers, 1 father, 1 old witch, and a map that led to a place no soul should ever return. As they neared the well under the cold moonlight, the horses froze. They wouldn't go any further. The family dismounted and walked the final stretch on foot. The thorns opened like old wounds as they stepped through. And there, under the twisted oak, the well stood, just as Elijah remembered. But, this time, the stones had been removed. The well was open. A candle burned inside, its flame black as coal. The cold was unreal. Even the wind had stopped breathing. The 5 of them stood before the open well, each too afraid to speak. The candle inside flickered violently, but its flame remained black, and from deep inside, a whisper rose. Papa. Elijah froze. Claire's knees gave way. That's Ruthie. No, Luna said, shaking her head. That's something wearing her voice. They all leaned in, listening. The voice came again, softer, broken. It's so dark down here. I'm cold. Jesse took a step forward. We have to go in. But Luna grabbed his arm. You go down that hole, boy, you ain't coming back. The same, if you come back at all. Suddenly the candle extinguished. Total darkness swallowed the well, and then a scream, so loud it shattered the silence like glass. Ruthie's scream. Claire lunged forward, but Elijah held her back. We'll go together, he said, eyes burning. Boys, rope. They tied it around Jesse's waist. He was the lightest, the fastest, the one who still believed in things like saving what's already gone. They lowered him slowly, foot by foot, into a silence so thick it rang in the ears. Jesse's voice echoed up. It's wet. I'm at the bottom. Do you see her? Caleb called. Jesse's lantern scanned the inside, and then he saw a small figure huddled in the corner. Ruthie. But when he got closer, the girl looked up. It was Ruthie's face, but the eyes were jet black, and her smile wasn't Ruthie's. You're just like him, the thing whispered. You buried her too. Jesse's lantern flickered. The girl stood, too tall for Ruthie. Her limbs elongated, her shadow stretching up the wall like a spider. And then, the rope went slack. Above, Elijah and the boys pulled. But something was wrong. The rope burned cold in their hands, as if touched by ice. Suddenly, Jesse's scream ripped through the night, and then silence. No pull on the rope, no reply, just the black hole. Claire screamed, trying to jump in after him. Elijah grabbed her. "I'm not losing you too." Luna stepped forward, voice hard. He's still alive. But not for long. Back at the ranch, the other girls, Emma and June, were silent. June kept rocking in her chair, humming that same eerie tune Ruthie had sung. Emma stared at the window. "Mama's not coming back, is she?" June just rocked faster, and then whispered, "She's already here." At the well, Caleb said, "We go in, all of us, now." Elijah nodded. "We end it tonight, but..." Luna raised her cane. "You go in blind and you feed him. We don't have a choice." "There's always a choice," Luna growled. Then slowly, she removed her necklace, a small silver charm etched with two snakes eating each other. She whispered a prayer in Spanish, then dropped it down the well. The well glowed for a second, revealing symbols all around the walls inside. Ancient. Forbidden. Elijah stared in horror. He marked the well, long before he died. Luna nodded. He made a deal with something older than fire, and it's not finished collecting. Inside the well, Jesse opened his eyes. He was lying on wet stone. And Ruthie, the real Ruthie, was chained to the wall crying. He crawled toward her. "Ruthie, it's me." She looked up. "Jesse, don't touch me. He's here." "Who?" And then, a face emerged behind her. Not a man, not a ghost. Something in between. Silas Graves. Only now, he was more shadow than flesh. "I told you, boys," he hissed. "You can't bury a sin this deep." Jesse's breath caught in his throat. The shadow that wore Silas Graves' face moved closer, but it didn't walk. It glided. Its body trailed like smoke, but the eyes, those were hungry. "You think you're the first to climb down here?" It hissed. "Many have come. Most forgot their names before they reached the bottom." Jesse's hands shook. He looked at Ruthie, still chained, pale, trembling. "She's just a girl. Let her go." The thing laughed, and the sound echoed like bones clattering down stone. "She's a key, and you're a sacrifice." Above ground, the sky darkened unnaturally. Not a single star remained. Even the moon pulled behind the clouds like it was afraid to look. Luna raised her hands, muttering spells in a tongue none of them understood. Her cane burned blue at the tip. Claire asked, "What are you doing?" Luna's voice was a growl. "There's more than one way into that well. He thinks it's his prison, but before that, it was a gate." "To what?" "To everything that's been locked away." Back inside the well, Jesse lunged forward. His blade, the one Elijah had given him on his 17th birthday, flashed. He swung hard. The blade went through the shadow. It didn't hurt it. It fed it. The demon smiled, and Jesse was flung back. Slammed against the stone wall. His shoulder cracked. Pain ripped through him. "I like your fire," the shadow said. "I'll keep it when I wear your skin." Suddenly, the ground trembled. The wall beside Jesse began to glow. Symbols pulsing like heartbeats. A soft humming filled the air. It wasn't the demon. It was Ruthie. She was singing the same tune she sang the night she vanished, and her chains. They began to rust, snap, fall. The demon screamed. "You remembered!" Ruthie opened her eyes. They blazed golden. "I remember Mama's prayers. I remember Papa's hands. I remember home." And the light exploded. On the surface, Luna fell to her knees. Blood dripped from her nose. "He's breaking the circle," she gasped. "I can't hold it much longer." Elijah grabbed a shovel. "Then we dig." Back in the well, the demon writhed. Smoke peeled from its limbs. Ruthie walked forward, unchained now, her feet bare, glowing with every step. The monster shrieked, backing into the corner. Jesse could barely breathe. "How? Are you doing this?" She looked at him. "Mama's lullaby." She said it was older than the dark, said it would wake something inside me if I ever got lost. And it had. The demon made one final leap, but Ruthie caught it in midair with a whisper. The thing shattered into ash. Gone. At that moment, the rope above was yanked, hard. Caleb and Elijah pulled with all their strength, and then Jesse and... Ruthie appeared, gasping, bruised, but alive. Claire dropped to her knees, sobbing. My baby. Ruthie fell into her arms. Luna smiled faintly. The child broke the curse, but the house, the land, they still remember what happened. Elijah, look toward the hills. Then we burn it all. That night, under the stars, the family watched the ranch house go up in flames. Every scream, every ghost, every sin turned to smoke. But just before the last beam fell, a figure appeared in the fire. Not Silas, not the demon, but a woman. Ruthie pointed. Mama? Claire's heart stopped. Elijah whispered. She came to say goodbye. And then the figure vanished. The flames took her with them. The fire still crackled behind them, a ghostly orange light flickering across their dust-covered faces. No one spoke. Even Ruthie, once so full of questions, clutched her mother's hand and stared into the ashes like she was waiting for something to rise again. It didn't. They rode back to town in silence. 4 horses, 1 broken family, and too many memories. But they were alive. That had to count for something. As they reached the edge of Chestnut Creek, the sheriff was waiting, leaning against the post office door, hat low, rifle at his side. Thought, I'd never see y'all again, he said. Elijah nodded slowly. We handled it, the sheriff tilted his head. Maybe, but there's still a mess to clean, and someone left this for you. He handed over a thick, weather-stained envelope. Elijah took it. The handwriting was sharp, military. Claire's hands trembled when she saw the name. Call Jasper Trenton. Their father. Back inside Luna's apothecary, the family sat close. The summit lantern buzzed, casting long shadows on the walls. Elijah opened the letter. Each word he read chipped away at what little piece they had left. If you're reading this, I'm likely dead. I sold my daughters because I had no choice, not because I wanted to. The war didn't kill me, but what I brought back from it did. I made a deal in a French forest, and it followed me here. Claire. Covered her mouth, tears falling fast. Caleb slammed his fist into the table. He knew what he was doing, but Elijah kept reading. Silas Graves offered me freedom from the curse if I gave him innocence. I gave him strangers at first, then orphans. When I ran out, I gave him blood. Ruthie's voice broke. The silence. So we were payment? Outside, Luna was stirring a black brew in a bone-white bowl. Claire stepped out, shaken. You knew, didn't you? What he'd done? Luna didn't look up. I knew the Trenton line was marked. I just didn't know how deep the wound went. Claire stared into the night. He was our father. And sometimes, Luna said quietly, monsters raise children better than saints ever could. Inside the house, Ruthie stood up. I want to go back. Everyone froze. No, Claire said instantly. You just escaped hell, but Ruthie was calm, stronger than ever. I left something behind. A voice. A girl I saw in the walls. She was calling my name. Elijah narrowed his eyes. You're sure it wasn't a trick? I'm sure she was real. Just then, the wind outside howled. Luna stepped in, bowl in hand. There's no going back down that well, but there is another way. What way? Asked Caleb. She held up a strange map. Stitched into animal hide. It's not just about Silas anymore. He was just the gatekeeper. Elijah frowned. Gatekeeper to what? Luna looked at them all. Something that hasn't opened in 100 years. But now your family has unlocked it. The map felt warm in Luna's hand, like it was pulsing, not like paper, more like skin. The lines weren't drawn, they were carved, and they shifted when you stared too long. Elijah studied, it jaw clenched. Where does it lead? Luna looked up slowly. To the beginning, of everything your father tried to bury. They rode at dawn. Fog rolled low over the earth as the family crossed Deadwood Ridge. Not a soul in sight, just the wind whispering stories through the trees. Claire held Ruthie close. Jesse and Caleb rode behind, silent. Tension sat heavy between them like a sixth rider. No one spoke about the name branded at the map's edge, Graven Hollow. Last time anyone came back from there, Luna muttered, they didn't come back whole. They reached a clearing by mid-morning. It was unlike anything they'd seen. Trees were twisted sideways. Birds didn't sing. And the ground? It breathed. Jesse dismounted, tying his horse to a dead tree. This the place? No, Luna said, kneeling. This is the mouth. She placed the map on the soil and whispered something in a language no one recognized. Suddenly the ground groaned. With a loud crack, the earth split. Stone stairs spiraled into darkness beneath. Elijah pulled Claire aside. Take Ruthie back. She shook her head. We came this far together. I don't want her seeing what's down there. Claire's eyes were fierce. Then we'll teach her to face it. They lit lanterns and descended. The air grew colder, wet. The walls were made of bone, human and animal, fused together in awful shapes. Etchings lined every surface. Names, symbols, some familiar, others ancient. Caleb's voice was barely a whisper. Is this a tomb? Luna answered. It's a vault, and your family was the lock. At the bottom, the chamber opened wide. In the center, a massive stone altar, chains dangled above it, and nailed to the far wall was a photograph. Claire gasped. It was them, all of them, taken days ago, fresh, still bleeding at the edges. How is this possible? Jesse whispered, before anyone could answer. The lanterns blew out, total blackness, and from the dark, a voice echoed. The daughters were a debt, but the sons, they are mine. The chamber pulsed like a heartbeat, cold, wet, alive. They stood frozen in pitch black, only the memory of light holding them steady. Claire clutched Ruthie's hand, whispering, Don't move. Then, a flicker. A single torch on the far wall flared to life by itself. The light revealed what was behind the altar. A figure. Not man, not spirit, something in between. It wore a sheriff's badge from a century ago. Its face, stitched from dozens, and its voice, when it spoke, was not one but many layered together. You carry their blood, the Trenton line, cursed not for sin, but for what you unleashed. Jesse stepped forward, fists clenched. You're the one our father made the deal with. The creature tilted its head. Your father was just the last. The first opened the gate. The rest merely fed me. Elijah raised his rifle. Then let's end this. But the beast didn't flinch. Instead, it reached behind the altar and pulled out a rusted chain, bound to something breathing. A child. Ruthie screamed, It's the girl from the walls! The creature smiled. She was promised, like you all were. Luna stepped forward, eyes burning. I know your name, she said, her voice fierce. You are Malric of the Hollow, and I revoke the pact. The chamber trembled. The torches died again, then flared back. The creature let out a long, awful sound, like sobbing underwater. You cannot revoke what was sealed in blood, unless more blood replaces it. Claire suddenly stepped between everyone. No, she whispered. This ends with me. Elijah grabbed her arm. Don't. But she was calm. I saw the girl in my dreams. She's me. She's what I was supposed to become. The creature raised its hand, claws glowing red. Then become it. But before it could strike, A gunshot rang out. Smoke curled from Ruthie's trembling hand. She had fired Elijah's revolver and hit the creature square in the chest. It screamed, a scream so loud the walls cracked. Jesse rushed forward, cutting the girl's chains. She collapsed into his arms, crying. "She's real," he said, voice shaking. "She's not a ghost. She's human," Luna whispered. "Then the line isn't broken." Elijah grabbed his lantern and stepped to the altar. "We end this. Now." He pulled a flask of oil from his coat, splashed it on the altar, then lit. It fire roared. The chamber howled in pain, and as the creature thrashed, its many stitched faces began to melt, revealing one final, horrible truth. It had worn their father's face all along. The smoke still clung to their clothes as they climbed out of the vault. The sun had started to rise, pale and distant, like it didn't want to witness what had just happened. Jesse carried the rescued girl in his arms. Her skin was cold, lips cracked, but her eyes burned like they'd seen centuries pass. Claire wrapped Ruthie in her shawl. She hadn't spoken since firing the gun. Not a word, just silence and eyes wide with something no child should carry. Behind them, the vault sealed shut. The ground closed as if it had never opened. They made camp near the creek. No one said much, just fire, just silence. Finally, the girl spoke. "My name's Mary," she said, her voice scratchy. "I was born in 1831. Jesse froze. "That's not possible," Mary nodded. "He kept me alive, fed off me, said I was the tether, the one that binds." Elijah looked at Luna. "What does that mean?" Luna stared into the flames. "It means she's the key to all of it." Mary turned to Ruthie, her voice suddenly steady. "You're like me," she whispered. Ruthie blinked. "I'm not." "You are," Mary insisted. "You dream things before they happen. You hear whispers when no one speaks. You feel cold in your bones when someone lies." Claire's heart stopped. She remembered the night Ruthie screamed about a man in the forest, the same night their father vanished. Luna finally stood. "I didn't come to help you," she confessed, eyes hard. "I came to watch Ruthie." Elijah rose to his feet, jaw clenched. "Watch her for what?" "For what she becomes." The fire crackled. Malric was the last of the old ones, but his death opened something worse. And it wants... "Ruthie." Suddenly Mary grabbed Claire's hand. "You have to take me to the hollow again." "Why?" Claire asked. "Because that chamber wasn't the end," Mary said. She turned toward Ruthie. "It was the door." A strong gust blew the fire sideways. Sparks danced into the trees. The horses neighed nervously. Then, all at once, they heard it, a second heartbeat, coming from beneath the earth, like something had awakened, not from pain, but from hunger. Ruthie stood slowly, her eyes glowing faintly. "I dreamed of this," she whispered. "There's another vault." Claire ran to her. "No, baby, it's over. You saved us. You're safe." Ruthie looked up, calm and cold. "I didn't save you, Mama. I warned you." The morning frost hadn't melted, even though the sun had been up for hours. It was unnatural, as if the land itself refused to wake. They rode in silence. Jesse led the way, his rifle slung across his chest, eyes darting across the barren hills. Claire held Ruthie close in the wagon, covering her with every spare blanket they had, even though the child claimed she wasn't cold. And behind them, Luna rode with Mary, her hand never far from her knife, because even though Mary looked like a little girl, something in her voice sounded ancient. As they neared the base of the old ridge, Jesse slowed down. "That's it," he said. Up ahead, broken stone columns jutted from the earth like ribs of a dead beast. Ivy clung to them, even in winter. But the raw ruins of Graven Hollow. Claire stared. "That place was real?" Luna nodded. "It was a town once, swallowed whole by fire and shame. They say it never stopped burning and just turned invisible." They dismounted. Mary stepped forward first. Her bare feet didn't hesitate on the frozen ground. She walked to the center of the ruins and dropped to her knees. "This is where it began," she whispered. The others gathered around her but kept their distance. Mary placed her palm on a flat stone covered in moss. "They built a church here. But under it, they built a well." Claire frowned. "Why would they dig a well under a church?" "To listen," Mary said, eyes vacant. "The whispers came from the earth. They thought it was angels." Elijah's voice was tight. "It wasn't." "No," Mary agreed. "It was him." Suddenly, Ruthie moved. She stepped away from her mother and walked toward the stone circle. Everyone froze. "Ruthie, no!" Claire cried out. But Ruthie didn't stop. She reached the center of the stone ring, then bent down and placed her small hand where Mary had touched, and the earth moved. The stones began to shift. One by one, they sank into the ground, revealing a spiral staircase carved into the rock, darkness below, not cold, not warm, just breathing. Jesse loaded his gun. "I'm going in first." Claire shook her head. "You don't even know what's down there." He looked back at her. "That's the point." Elijah lit a lantern and stepped beside him. "Then we both go." Mary nodded slowly. "He's still dreaming. You'll feel it when you get close." "He remembers you." Claire's eyes narrowed. "Remembers who?" Mary looked directly at Ruthie. "You." As the men descended the stairs, Luna stayed above with Claire and the girls. But even Luna looked shaken. "This isn't just a vault," she murmured. "It's a root, one of many, like veins in the earth." Claire turned to her. "Why Ruthie? Why her?" Luna didn't answer, but Mary did. "Because she's the only one he couldn't touch, and the only one who might wake him." Far below, Jesse and Elijah reached the chamber. The walls pulsed like skin. Symbols, older than language, glowed faintly in red. At the center stood a black stone. Jesse whispered, "Is that it?" Elijah nodded. "The heart." The lantern dimmed. Something stirred behind them, and in the dark, a voice came, not loud, not harsh, but familiar. "Jesse." He turned and saw his father standing there, smiling, alive. Jesse froze. The man standing in the chamber looked exactly like his father, Jedediah Calloway. Same eyes, same weather-worn coat, same scar beneath the chin where a horse once kicked him. But Jedediah had been dead for 15 years. Elijah raised his lantern. "It's a trick, don't listen." But Jesse's voice cracked. "Pa?" The figure smiled gently. "You came back to finish what I started." Jesse stepped forward, not in trust, but in awe. "You disappeared in the Devil's Basin. They found your blood, your boots." "I gave them up," the man replied. "You have to shed something, to enter the hollow." Back above ground, Ruthie was sitting on the stones again. Claire watched her, heart pounding. Ruthie's lips were moving, but no sound came. Mary leaned close and listened. "She's speaking to him," Mary whispered. Luna stepped in, suddenly tense. "Shut her up!" Claire turned, furious. "She's my daughter!" "No," Luna snapped. "She's something else now. You just don't want to see it." Back in the chamber, Elijah walked between Jesse and the figure. "Enough lies, but..." The man tilted his head. "Elijah Burns, the doubter, the skeptic, still running from the scream your wife made when she burned." Elijah went pale. "How do you..." "I remember everything," the man said, voice deeper now. "Every fear, every regret. I wear the masks of the lost so you'll listen." Jesse stepped back, voice hard now. "You're not my father." The chamber trembled slightly, dust raining from the ceiling. "Not yet," the figure said. "But if you stay here long enough, I could be." Above ground, Ruthie opened her eyes, but they were no longer her eyes. They were glowing pale white. Claire rushed forward. Ruthie! But the voice that came from her daughter's mouth was not Ruthie's. They found the heart. The cracks are forming. I am almost free. Mary backed away, face ghostly white. It's too soon. She wasn't supposed to speak yet. Claire grabbed Ruthie's face. Baby, come back, please, you're stronger than this. But the voice replied, soft and chilling, She's not here anymore. Inside the vault, the ground shook again. The black stone at the center split slightly, a thin line of glowing red leaking from within. Elijah fired a shot toward the figure. The bullet passed through, hitting the wall. The man laughed, not in rage, but like a delighted child. You've cracked the seal, he whispered. One more key, and the gate opens. Suddenly, the figure vanished in smoke. Jesse turned, furious. We need to break that stone. Elijah hesitated. What? If breaking it frees him? Jesse paused, and for the first time, he didn't have an answer. Back above, Luna grabbed a sack from her horse, filled with ritual tools. If she speaks again in that voice, we bind her, she warned. Claire drew her revolver. You touch my daughter. I swear, she's not your daughter anymore. That made Claire pause. Ruthie stood up slowly, the white in her eyes fading, just barely. I'm tired, Mama, she whispered. My bones feel heavy, like someone else is inside me. Claire knelt beside her, holding her tight. We'll fix this, I swear it. But even as she said it, a chill ran through her, because deep down, Claire feared they were already too late. The black stone in the vault had split halfway. A glowing red pulse beat inside it, like a heartbeat too big for this world. Jesse stepped toward it, holding the rifle with shaking hands. Elijah stood beside him, eyes locked on the shifting cracks. We destroy it, Jesse said, voice hoarse. We end this now. But a voice rose behind them, Ruthie's voice echoing through the chamber. The stone is not evil. It is a prison, and you are breaking its bars. Claire rushed down the tunnel, holding her daughter's hand. Ruthie was cold, pale, and yet something behind her eyes burned ancient. The red light brightened. A shape began to rise from within, the stone. Shadowy arms, long and serpent-like, curling through the cracks. Elijah aimed his pistol, but Ruthie whispered, No, you can't kill it. You can only trade for it. Claire looked down at her daughter, tears streaming. What do you mean, trade? Ruthie turned to her, barely herself now. If someone takes its place, the prison closes again. The hollow needs a soul. Jesse's eyes widened. No way. But Ruthie stepped forward, calm as morning mist. I'm already halfway gone, Mama. If I stay, you get to go home. All of you. Claire grabbed her, shaking. Ruthie, don't you do this! Don't you dare! I saw the souls, Ruthie whispered. Trapped, screaming. And one of them was Pa. Claire froze. You can set him free, Ruthie said, her voice trembling now, and I can take his place. Jesse stepped forward. There has to be another way. But Elijah, quiet now, nodded grimly. She's right. The hollow was never meant to be opened. It was meant to hold something back. Claire held Ruthie, tight, trembling, sobbing. I won't let them take you. I won't lose you too. But Ruthie kissed her cheek, smiling softly. You didn't lose me, Mama. You saved me. And now I'll save you back. She stepped toward the stone. It flared, one last red pulse, and then she vanished into the light. The stone slammed shut. The cracks sealed. The red glow vanished. Silence. Claire collapsed to her knees. Jesse lowered his rifle. Elijah dropped his hat to his chest, whispering, God, keep her soul. The vault stopped shaking. The air cleared, and the hollow, for the first time in 100 years, fell still. 2 years later, the Callaway Ranch was blooming again. Mary taught in a small wooden schoolhouse. Claire tended her garden with quiet hands and a necklace around her neck, Ruthie's locket. Jessie stood by the porch, watching the hills. Beyond. Sometimes I still hear her, Claire said softly. In dreams. She's still watching, Jessie replied. He handed her a small wooden box. Inside was a folded letter in Ruthie's handwriting. If I could choose again, I'd choose to be your daughter every time. And as the wind moved through the grass, far in the distance, a faint laughter echoed from the trees. Not haunting, but free. If this story moved your heart, if Ruthie's sacrifice made you feel something real, don't forget to subscribe to Luminous Tales, because this is where legends live and love always leaves a mark.